Welcome to the Monaca Vanderpool podcast, where inspiration meets action. Monaca Vanderpool is a dynamic force in the Richmond community, a trailblazing loan officer at Southern Trust Mortgage, and a celebrated entrepreneur with a passion for helping others thrive. With a rich background in business and a military upbringing that shaped her resilience, Monaca has dedicated her life to empowering others. Whether through her best-selling book, Jokers Dressed Up as Kings, her transformative events, or her work making home happen, Monaca brings unparalleled expertise and heart to everything she does. In this podcast, you'll hear stories of courage, conversations about building a brighter future, and insights to inspire your next big move, whether it's buying your dream home or reclaiming your power. So tune in and get ready to be inspired. This is the Monaca Vanderpool podcast.
Monaca Vanderpool, and we're leveling up a little bit. We partnered with Studio 77. We've got some new video, new audio. I'm here with Robby Magruder.
I'm Robby Magruder. Yep, I'm with Southern Trust Mortgage and been a longtime loan officer. And we have a great friend of mine here, Sharon Perkins with Appomattox Title, and excited to have her on our podcast and talk a little bit about her business and learn what we can do and do better.
Yeah. So. And Robby and I we're both loan officers, but Robby is actually the branch manager of the Innsbruck location of Southern Trust Mortgage. And do you go by Rob or Robby? What do you prefer?
That's funny. I grew up as Robby all the time, but then in my business career, I felt like that was a little young.
Okay.
So I transitioned to Rob over the years. My dad's Rob, but my friends call me Robby. In the business world, most people know me as Rob.
Nice. Okay. And Robby and I have known each other for a long time, so I call him Robby. Right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So a couple of weeks ago, Robby and I actually put together a sip and shoot, which was basically a cocktail happy hour where we invited professionals to get a complimentary headshot, and had a wonderful turnout. And when putting the event together, we knew that we would be getting a lot of realtors. And knowing that, we knew that a great introduction would be title companies. So we reached out to Appomattox Title, and they graciously offered to be one of the sponsors for our event. So today we are sitting here with Ms. Perkins, who is the president, CEO, and founder of Appomattox Title. So welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me today.
Yeah, thank you for coming.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, and I want to go back to how Appomattox Title was founded.
So in 1985, I took a job with First American Title Insurance Company, and this is prior to technology. We didn't have computers to do all the work, and so I started in the record room, learning to do title searches. Record rooms are public. People don't really understand that. They can go in there and look things up. So back then you had to do it by hand, a lot of reading. And fast forward, I stayed with First American. I grew with the company. I became a manager, and with that became challenges as a mom. I had young children. And in 1996, the company decided to take a different path. And so rather than have a direct operation where we were doing commercial and residential real estate closings, they were going to go strictly commercial downtown in Richmond. Did not suit me as a mom. And so I had about a 2-week leap of faith to take. And just didn't let it scare me. And I opened Appomattox Title Company. I figured that the clients I was working with didn't really care what name was on the door as long as I was behind the door. They were my clients. I had earned their trust.
Right.
And so I offered the other employees that were losing their jobs an opportunity, and most people are scared. So only one said yes. And Appomattox Title was born in June of 1996.
Wow.
How did it get its name? Is a really intriguing question, right? My daughter was in 4th grade, and the phone book was still real. So A mattered. We were sitting at home, and we were thinking about it. The internet was just being born,
Yeah.
So we were doing homework, and I realized my office is in Chesterfield County, and that's where I live, and that area, that land, had originally belonged to the Appomattox tribe.
Oh, very interesting.
It's a land business, so to pay homage, I said we should name it after that.
I love it.
I love that.
That's
So
awesome.
Appomattox
Yeah.
Title was born. Fast forward, hit the ground running, never looked back, just worked hard and grew the business. And in 2005, I bought my office building I'm in. And another challenge being self-employed. You have to think about your future and where your money's going. I write for a couple of the national underwriters, and I do residential and commercial. My background at First American was commercial. I did all the big clients, the Home Depots and Pizza Huts and Applebee's and all of that. So most title agents like myself don't do a lot of large commercial, but I still do, as well as residential. And we service the whole state of Virginia, which is also unique for a small agency. One of my employees has been with me for 20 years, which is commendable in a small atmosphere. I have 12 people, and I have multiple joint venture companies, getting ready to start my 7th company. And so
Wow.
it's a lot of fun dealing with a lot of real estate agents and facing the challenges that come with the title industry. Every
So
day.
can we go back to when you started? Because what's sticking out in my head is that you said you had 2 weeks.
I had 2 weeks.
All this happened within 2 weeks.
Yes, I had to accept the position as manager to go downtown to the James Center, or decline it. And so, 2 kids in daycare, a new house. I had to go home and say, I'm quitting my job.
Yeah.
But I had to have a plan. And so I called a friend that's an attorney and said, how quick can we start a company? And how much money does it take? And at the time, Central Fidelity Bank said $250 to open a commercial account. So that's how I started, with $250. And remember when Gateway computers came out with the cow print?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I bought 2 of those.
Wow.
That was the beginning.
That was the
2
beginning.
computers and a bank account.
Wow.
Oh,
Wow.
so how was it in the beginning? Bunch of challenges? Was it, or do you just put your head down?
Sorry,
Good.
you're like getting further.
I'm further away. I'm
You
relaxing in the
if
chair.
You can go like this, so you make sure.
Oh,
you
that'll
stay-
make me stay. Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
so it was kind of.
It's my beginning. I knew. Challenges, really just understanding compliance. Just like you guys in the mortgage industry, there's a lot of compliance. So you have to be licensed as a title agent with the state. You have to be set up as an agent with an agency agreement for who you're going to underwrite for. So think of a title escrow company, particularly with all the guidelines at the time was RESPA and CRESPA. Everyone has to have you on an approved list. So you constantly have to stay in compliance, and we're audited every year, and those reports go to the state as well. The amount of money we handle a month is the same as a small bank. So you want to make sure it's with someone that is trustworthy.
Absolutely.
So your mortgage company has to keep us on a vetted and approved list to be able to wire money to us, and then turn around and allow us to disperse that money within 48 hours. And we have to stay meeting those guidelines at all times. I would say learning QuickBooks.
Yeah.
And making sure that I had a good accountant and a good attorney on the journey with me at all times to make sure that I stayed in compliance.
Right. Because you said in the beginning it was you and one other.
Yeah, one employee.
Okay.
Wow.
And so we grew. Just over time, I hired more people. And for any small business owner, that's a big responsibility. When you hire a new employee, you're taking on their family. And so they're very important to me.
And I've always said that you have to let go to grow. Did you find
do.
that too? Yeah.
If you're not growing, you're dying, is my motto. You constantly have to look for new business, new relationships, new opportunities, and paying attention to what's changing in the market.
Right.
And in this industry, the title industry, particularly, the focus for my life and my employees is to avoid fraud. Every single day we face fraud in my business.
Was the job what you expected? I know a lot of people talk about once they become self-employed, you're no longer doing just that one specific thing. You're taking on the role of an accountant, as HR, as all these roles that you didn't necessarily sign up for. So I always find that's an interesting piece of the puzzle. Like you said that you've got trusted partners in that regard, but when you launched this company, did it work out the way you thought it would, or? Did it?
It did. I've been very blessed.
Uh-huh.
You know, I mean, in 1996, I was laughing because the first week I made like $6,000, and I was like, "This is awesome." I didn't want to have debt, and I give that advice to people opening a business. Yes, you know, you may need to get a bank loan, you may need to buy a building, you may need to finance equipment, but trying to minimize how much you burden yourself with out the gate reduces that stress because you know that you can pay your bills. Mm-hmm. And for me, my payroll's always been my biggest overhead. We're not a company that has inventory. We provide a service. So as long as I can manage that, I can manage the rest. It is challenging. It's 24/7.
Yeah.
You know, the real estate agents that you guys work with work 24/7. They're afraid to turn their phone off because they don't want to miss the next deal. You guys are afraid to turn the phone off. But at some point you have to set boundaries. You really have to set boundaries. And if you set those, people don't disrespect you as easily. If you allow someone to contact you at 10 p.m., they're going to continue to do that. But if you let them know that that's not the right way to do business, there's no real emergency at 10 p.m. in a real estate closing or a title insurance matter.
Right, you set the pace with them
Yeah.
early on.
You do. So I give that advice to my young real estate agents because I feel like they're mom now. You know, I've reached that place in my 60s that I say, listen to me. I want you to be successful. So please set these boundaries and make time for your family, you know, because that's what's most important. Your children will grow up. And now I'm a grandmother. So you know, I have new challenges with trying to balance my work life to include more people than I started out with, you know.
So when did the partnership with Southern Trust and Appomattox, when did that begin, and how did it begin?
I mean, for me, it's been years and years. I mean, my relationship with Sharon predates my tenure at Southern Trust. You know, we started out as Monarch Mortgage, and you know, typically speaking, the progression from a loan officer perspective, as it relates to how we connect with title, is through a real estate agent. We don't typically choose who we're going to use, especially in a purchase money transaction, right? And so by virtue of relationships that I had in the real estate industry, I was fortunate to be introduced to Sharon, and you know, the rest is kind of history. It's one of those situations that if anybody ever calls me and asks me who I trust in title, Sharon is definitely one of the very first names that come up, because I see the care and the time that she and her team take to make sure that the transaction goes smoothly and that people understand the expectations. So, I mean, from a time perspective, it's been 15 years that I've been fortunate to do business with Appomattox, and you know, I'm happy with it. I love it. Sharon has given me the exact advice that she was just referencing, and I appreciate it for sure. Yeah, helped me grow in my career. Just, you know, so it's not transactional. It's a very relationship based, you know, relationship.
Yeah, I love that, and that's probably one of your favorite things about it is the relationship and the advice and such that you give.
I've met a lot of wonderful people, and 28 years or close to 40 years total. I've seen a lot of people retire. I've lost some along the way. I would say that has been the best thing about having my own business, is that I've been able to meet so many professional people that I can be their cheerleader, you know, that I want to see them all be successful. Right. And young women, you know, I've raised 2 daughters, so I'm always about making sure you know that you can do anything you set your heart to.
I love that. Anything's possible.
Requires hard work, though, and we see that in you all the time. When I go to closings at Sharon's office, like, she always comes out and greets the clients. She's part of the transaction the whole time. She's not just a name behind a company name. She is the face, truthfully, and it's amazing to see. You don't see that in every company. So, and it keeps people coming back because they trust her 100%. I've got some friends that have used her multiple times, and they call her specifically because they trust Sharon. So yeah,
Oh,
it's great.
that's what a great testimony. That's amazing.
Well, you know, you have a hairdresser and you have a dentist, and you might not think you have a title person, but
Right.
I want people to know they have
Right.
a title person
You have a
too.
title person.
You know, some of the things that we are challenged with now is you see commercials for something called title lock. In Virginia, we don't really need title lock. Some of the counties, Chesterfield being one of them, you can register your property, so if anything happens, you get a notification. But we get a lot of people that are nervous about their parents or themselves and fraud. And honestly, I get fake contracts. People representing themselves as the seller of a property they don't own. And so those phone calls you all get asking if your property's for sale, they're phishing. They're trying to get information. So we always tell people to be very vigilant with their property, particularly if it's lien-free, meaning you don't have a mortgage on the property. If it's land only fraud is the big thing right now, where someone pretends they own land. You may not visit that land. You may live in another state and own land in Virginia. And then we recently had one come through, and I don't know why, but I said, you know, this lady's getting her tax bills to a P.O. box. So I sent her a letter introducing myself. We got your contract for your sale. Can't wait to work with you. I need some more information. Can you reach out to me at this number? She did, to tell me that wasn't real, and that was the third title company to contact her, but that I had done it so nicely that everyone else had stalked her to the point of calling neighbors and finding her at her job.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
Which made her very uncomfortable that people
Yeah.
were looking into her personal life to locate her.
Wow.
So these are really events happening in the last couple of
It's
months.
scary.
It is, yeah.
Check washing. Do you know what check washing is? If you drop a bill in the mail or a check in the mail and it gets taken out of the mail, they duplicate your check with your signature and they go and deposit it, mobile deposit, or through a drive-through. And if it isn't caught by your bank or you, then they've stolen your money.
My
Wow.
goodness.
Can you talk about, I know a huge hot button in our industry right now relating to fraud is wire fraud.
Wire fraud.
It's huge. And I've heard horror stories of people thinking they've wired hundreds of thousands of dollars for a real estate transaction, and lo and behold, it had gone to the incorrect account and there was no way for them to recoup those funds.
The way to prevent wire fraud is for you and the real estate agents you're working with to be very vigilant and upfront telling their client not to wire money until they have discussed those wiring instructions with the title company or attorney during their closing. We had a closing yesterday. Everything went well, but the young lady failed to call and verify the information provided to her in an encrypted email that clearly stated, do not wire any funds until you've called, 1, to verify the instructions, and 2, to verify the amount. She wired the money. It was the wrong amount because she didn't take the time to make sure it was correct. Fortunately, her email had not been compromised and she had the right instructions. We have real estate agents that have gotten their hands on our instructions and they feel they can hand it out. That's not a good idea for the agent to do that because I may have changed banks.
Right.
Or that information may have been compromised somewhere along the way because technology allows you to alter a PDF where that used to be hard to do, you know. So very important to emphasize, do not wire until you've called the closer, verified the amount, verified the instructions, and then take that information to your bank. It can happen.
Yeah. Really scary
If
stuff.
you've noticed, a lot of real estate agents use free email, and I discourage that. They use Gmail because it's free. They change companies often, so they don't want to lose their email contacts. So instead of using their brokerage email that's provided to them, they will use Gmail. Well, that is at risk. So if they've been emailing back and forth with a client, and we had this happen years ago, I had no fault in this. Fortunately, it was only $18,000. Which is still a lot of money.
It's a lot of money, yeah.
But what happened was the realtor had been emailing with their client, and I had emailed the both of them that evening to say, I don't have your loan package. I'll let you know tomorrow, and you roughly will need this amount of money. And I put in there, as we had discussed a cashier's check, I'll call you tomorrow to tell you how much to get your cashier's check for. Well, overnight that night, she got an email that she thought was from me. Someone had gone to my website. At the time, I had my picture on the landing page. They took my picture, they took my logo, and they sent her an email with a letter attached to it with fake wire instructions.
Wow.
The next morning, the realtor called me to say, hey, the money's been wired for closing. My heart sank because I knew I had not given either of them instructions. Called the client right away. She had sent the money to somebody named Richard Kleckner in a credit union in Indiana.
Oh, no.
The saddest part was the bank she had walked into that did the wire. Why didn't they question that? Looked really bizarre, the way it was printed. Going to Indiana, you're buying a property in Virginia. Everyone failed her.
Wow. Yeah, fraudsters get really, really creative these
That's
days,
scary.
you know, and figuring out ways to do that. So it's so
But I have to
important be
commend my
careful.
real estate agent in that transaction. She loaned her the money so she could close on her house.
Wow.
Oh, my goodness.
Wow.
Wow.
Man, oh, man.
Let her
Got
pay
it
her back
done.
because she felt dreadful, even though, it wasn't anyone's fault.
Right.
Except she didn't read the email that said, I'll call you in the morning and I'll tell you how much to get.
Yeah.
Wow.
So emphasize that when your clients, they're nervous, they're busy, they're tired, they're packing. Make sure they keep their money safe.
Right. That's great advice. What other advice that you have for the listeners? Title in general.
Well, make sure you own the property. Sometimes deeds are recorded. There's transfer and death deeds now, which is great, absolutely wonderful, so you don't have to go through probate. However, if you've inherited property, and we do a title search and find that more people own the property, make sure you know you own the property before you put it up for sale. If you have siblings that are involved, makes me sad and breaks my heart daily for some of the properties that we deal with where siblings are divided because of a death in an estate. And so for anyone listening that is thinking about selling their property, particularly if there are more owners than just themselves, make sure they know all the details so they give their listing agent all the right information. For our buyers, just to make sure they're doing their homework, that they know what it's going to cost to own a home and that they're working with the right agent for them to help them find the right home and working with you guys to get the right loan, because not every loan fits every individual.
Right.
So not to feel so anxious, it has to be done quickly,
Right.
but to do their research for the largest purchase they'll ever make in their life.
And, can we back up just a hair? Because the largest proportion of the population that's buying homes right now are first-time home buyers, right? And I get the question all the time, what is title insurance? I don't think people really know what title insurance actually is. It's immaterial, like they don't really get it. So I always defer to the title company to explain that, but could you help our listeners a little bit with that?
So title insurance guarantees that when you buy a home and it's deeded to you, that no one else has right, title, claim, or interest. And what does that mean? A prior judgment, credit card maybe, judgment, medical bill, something that could have liened the property. So when you own property, if you don't pay your bills, then those that you owe money to can put a lien against you. A contractor that you didn't pay could put a mechanic lien against you. So you want to make sure that the current real estate taxes are paid and that anyone that had interest has conveyed their interest and anyone that's owed money has been paid. And one of the surprises now for all of us are solar panels that are going on houses. These are a financing statement lien, so they are a lien on the property. You don't have clear title if that lien is still there.
Right.
So it has to be satisfied at the time of sale. We have had some unique stories. We had a situation where we represented a seller, and she didn't want to leave her house. She didn't drive. I knew the realtor really, really well. He's well known in the community. And he asked if one of my staff could go with him to the house to notarize the deed. And he would go with them. Sure. Fast forward, we're about 6 months later, and I get a phone call from a local law firm that had closed the transaction to say the lady that sold this house didn't own it.
Wow.
Well, we relied on their title work. So when we represent the seller side, we don't do the title work. We do that when we do the buyer side. Well, you said she owned it. Here was her deed. She had married an elderly man. She wasn't elderly. His daughter had showed up to town to see him in the nursing home, only to realize his home had been sold. So what she had done was had a deed done to convey the property to herself, had a friend, quote unquote, notarize it. And she recorded it. And she waited 3 years. And then she sold it and took the money and ran.
Oh, my goodness.
Wow.
Wow.
So Daddy married a not so good girl.
Yeah.
And what happens? That's a title claim. The family that moved in that house did not own it. That deed to her was fraudulent. That's total failure of title. So the title company either has to go back and see if the family is willing to do the right kind of deeds and do deeds to correct that, or people have to leave. So without title insurance, they would have nothing. They would
Right.
lose their home.
Right.
The lender always requires title insurance because you guys want to be in first lien position. So there's no way you're going to make a loan without title insurance. So rest assured, you're going to get a title search done. And we're relying on land records that someone else manages and keeps, right? So there can be errors in the land records that not made by a searcher, not made by my staff underwriting, but there are actually errors in recordation, meaning something got recorded out of order, in the wrong name, or something like that. So those things are covered by title insurance. That particular case was absolute fraud. I had a situation where I'm at the closing table and it felt funny. It just felt funny. There was a power of attorney being done for one of two sellers. And I said, well, where is this gentleman? Nobody, couldn't be here. So I went back and looked at the signature on the power of attorney against the signature on the deed of trust when he bought the house, and they were not the same. So I called the notary, worked at a local bank, asked him, did he notarize the document? He said, yes. I said, well, did you get ID? It was quiet. He did not get ID because his best friend brought that friend to him to notarize the power of attorney.
Oh, wow.
Why would he have questioned his friend, bringing a friend, right?
Right, yeah.
Right.
So I walked back in the conference room and said, this power of attorney is fraudulent. Now you want to tell me really where he is? He's in jail.
Oh, wow.
So when he gets out of jail, he's not going to know he sold his house.
Oh, my goodness.
His mother was the other half owner, and she's sitting there with the uncle that was going to be the power of attorney. So I kindly asked them to leave. And if you want to do it the right way, and he really wants to sell his house, let me know. And he did. He did. He wanted to sell it. And so then it was done the correct way.
My goodness.
Wow.
That could have passed by any member of my staff. It
Right.
just was one of those things I picked up on.
Right.
That's virtue
That
of
would
experience.
cover the buyer for title insurance. That's what title insurance is. It covers you for the things you can't think about, you can't make up. They happen during the day.
Right.
Because people are very creative and they're willing to take those risks.
And
Well, go
title
ahead.
insurance is so, so important, and I see it all the time and hear these stories because I'm in the industry. But something else I think that people don't understand is that it's a one-time purchase. As long as you own that property, your title insurance remains in place, even if you refinance that mortgage. So, it's an invaluable asset to have. It really is great protection. So,
So, Rob, that is valid, but owner's title insurance is a one-time purchase. One-time meaning you don't get another bill for premium like other insurances that you get an annual invoice for. However, it's optional. So when your
Right.
closing disclosure goes out, it clearly says it's optional, and it is optional.
yeah.
And a lot of times that money matters.
Mm-hmm.
But in the big scheme of that purchase and how much money someone's spending, it's money well spent.
Right.
So we don't have too many cases a year that people say that. It's typically their money's just that tight. We can't go back and offer it. And I say we can't. We don't like to. It's very complicated. It needs to be done what we call simultaneous, and that gives them a discount on the premium for your lender policy. So we want to write that title insurance at the same time and make sure all the title requirements that are necessary have been met.
Yeah. And I mean, you're talking about, it could be a few $1,000s for the upfront policy, depending on the size of the transaction. But I mean, if you're borrowing, the average sales price in Richmond's $375,000. Once you do the amortization on that over 30 years, you spent, close to $1 million pretty easily. So it's money well spent up front, in my opinion. Yeah.
Another challenge that we don't really think about now because we're past 2020, during COVID, the courthouses were closed. We could not get into the courthouses to do title work, and not all of them are online for having access to their land records. So during that time, documents were mailed in, dropped with a sheriff at the door. My feeling on that is it takes time for things to surface, and that we're going to start seeing some things surface as a result of those courthouses being closed during COVID.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah.
So there are going to be things that come up that are going to be title claims.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm hearing that from my underwriters that already are, because things were done incorrectly during a very difficult time.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
we
that's
didn't
a
know
great
how to,
point.
we were essential like you. And so the work had to get done. It was just done very differently. And we were actually ensuring without knowing we could update the gap. And what is the gap? So we get your order, we get the contract, we do a title search. That title search, when we go to closing, is probably 2-3 weeks old. So during that 2 or 3 weeks, we call it the gap. Something else could have gone to record.
Mm-hmm.
And during COVID, we couldn't get current information. So we couldn't go look at the clerk's desk and see what's on it.
Mm-hmm.
So there was that period of time that we're at risk.
Mm-hmm.
And I do believe that purchasing title insurance now is more valuable than it's ever been, because those things are going to come up.
Right. Yeah, that's a great point. I think it's a great comfort in knowing that you're in good hands, and I think people are going to get that with Appomattox Title.
Thank you.
So thank you for sponsoring our wonderful event. Thank you for coming here today, giving us a little bit more insight on Appomattox Title and the title industry.
Thank you for having
So-
me.
Absolutely.
Thank you for working
Yep.
with me as a partner.
Always
Yeah.
value your mentorship and our relationship and friendship, and I greatly appreciate you
Yeah.
coming. Thanks.
And me
Sharon.
being new in the industry, I'm looking forward to working with you.
I look forward to that as well, Monica.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right.